Hello and welcome back to the Imperial Hotel in Blackpool for continued live coverage of the World 8-Ball Pool Championships. Up next, the Under-23 singles quarter-final between Martin Dunne of Ireland and Adam Maher of Ireland. Not, as you can see, the best break, so we may be in for a slightly lengthy first frame unless somebody wants to get those balls smashed up again. It's always difficult to know what to do in these situations. Sometimes there's a temptation to open the balls up, and other times you feel like you should let your opponent. So Martin Dunne gradually working his way through these balls. Not the most promising start to a match. Generally you want all the balls split up nicely so that you can get your hand on the table and start compiling some kind of break. He's carrying on manfully despite the somewhat clustered nature of all the balls. It looks for a moment that that red may actually have gone. I don't know if that yellow has now spoilt the party coming over the corner pocket. Oh, what a good positional shot. What a very good positional shot. That was very difficult to judge from where he was. Two very promising young Irish players. In fact, it's been Ireland all the way. The match on our other table also includes an Irish player, Cormac Kerr, who's taking as that keeper of England. So guaranteed some good Irish representation in the semi-finals. It's always a very competitive division, the under-23s. The players have got to an age where they're pretty accomplished by then. Maybe don't quite have the match play experience of the seniors who've been doing it for 10 years or 20 years, but most of these guys have been playing pool, have come up through the junior ranks. Certainly more than know their way around the table. Well, it's fair to say from that position that it was a reasonably good opportunity for a snooker, given the enormous cluster of balls at the bottom of the table. You don't very often see the balls like this. It almost looks like someone's just left them on there when they're still racking them up. You see that more at the beginning of the frame than once play is actually underway. Not the best of break-off shots, which led to this position. Martin Dunne did pretty well actually in the circumstances to pluck out as many reds as he did. But he's now got himself in the unfortunate situation of just having the one ball left. That was pretty tricky. Even if you judge that slightly better, there was a very small window to hit the red off the right hand side cushion, because that yellow's covering a significant part of it. This could be just what Adam needs. He could potentially cut this one in the middle and open this cluster up. Didn't need to hit it very hard. No, he's got a 4-ball plant which isn't a 4-ball plant, so he's going to have to find some way of getting over that side of the table. Not sure if the top one of the yellows goes. It's one of these positions where one good positional shot could really open this up. Helped, of course, by having two visits in hand. So if you can see enough to pot the furthest right of the yellows, that would inevitably involve cannoning into the one that's next to it, so that may be one route to opening things. Well, it's fashioned another plant which still isn't quite there. So you can either try to make some kind of plant out of this or just set the shot up. You see there, the two balls are on the left aren't pointing the right way. It's probably an easier plant to make off the right hand one, but then he might prefer to split them up. Should still be fine having two shots here. It's just one of those positions where you've got to be a bit careful. You can mess this up surprisingly easy sometimes. Which may be what he's done. Can he get through to the one over the corner pocket? If not, that's a little bit careless. I think that's okay now. The two balls I think he can make into a plant and the other one goes anyway, so it looks like he should be good. He's got quite a good angle to fashion a plant out of these ones if required. Oh, he's left it short though. That's the one thing he couldn't really afford to do. He had quite a big margin for error. If the white had come further up to the table, he was still going to be okay on the other yellow. I don't blame him for being delicate about that, but Needed to hit that a bit harder. No excuse for not reaching the pocket. Not to be though for Martin Dunne. Off a lifeline which he was unable to take at that point. So, surely now for Adam Maher. So a good positional shot off the last yellow, sets up this straightforward black. Safely down, so slightly scrappy first frame courtesy of the break not turning out so well, but that will be of no concern to Adam Maher, who gets his first frame on the board. Martin Dunne then breaking off in the second frame. Two sporting goes at putting the white in the bottom centre pocket as we look at it. Came off both jaws. Fortunately the goalkeeper was there to protect him. Significantly better break than the first frame, although still no balls potted. Best of 13 this match, so plenty of time still to go. First to 7 books their place in the semi-final. Adam opting to go for the reds. A little bit to think about here, because that one at the bulk end of the table, not really going anywhere unless you're right behind it. Looks pretty relaxed at the moment, as you'd expect, I suppose. Now he's got his first frame on the board. Presumably figures that he can get the red past the yellow. From the first angle we looked at, that didn't look too promising, but funny how you would think the overhead angle would be the most reliable to see, but from there you'd swear it didn't go, but I think from behind it it actually probably does go. So just looking at where, if he rolls this ball that he's pointing at into the corner pocket bottom right as we now look at it, can he hold the white? I think ideally he just wants to hit it gently and then he'll have the red in the middle pocket to take after that. Well, it was tight, that's no surprise. It was evidently tight from the camera angle. Just took a little bit too much of the jaw on his way through, which is why it's hung up there. And that could well be the difference between this being a pretty quick clearance off the break, or off the first visit at least, and a much longer tactical battle. As we've seen so many times, once you get this combination of a couple of balls over the corner pocket, it can sometimes take a bit of time to resolve. Martin Dunne just studying his options. Does he feel he can get this yellow past the red? Well, he must have thought he could, although I'm not absolutely certain I agree with him. There didn't seem to be that much space there. Although on the plus side from his perspective, he's got the red so far into the pocket that it's going to be pretty difficult to get through to it. I think it probably does still pop, but there's not exactly a huge gap for it. That's for later though. Adam obviously can't see it just yet, so he's going to have to go for a red at the other end of the table first. Slightly surprising miss, although obviously one eye on the position, which is probably how he came to miss it. Still pretty much the same equation for Martin Dunne as he comes back to the table. It's the yellow and the red together over the corner pocket that are his problem. All the other yellows are actually quite nice, but he's not going anywhere fast until he does something with that one. Don't think either player particularly looking to get involved in a tactical battle at this stage, particularly in the early going of a match. It's always nice just to put a few balls. Probably a bit of a cliche, but it tends to be the case that the juniors and the under-23s and the younger players generally are more fans of an open attacking game. They're somewhat less keen to get involved in tactical battles. Just where they are involved in this battle, we'll just take a look at the quarter-final draw more generally. Over in the other stream table, we've got Zach Cooper of England is taking on Cormac Kerr of Ireland at the moment. And then on the two outer tables, we've got Jack Smithers of England against Joe Nolte of England, and Govinder Gill of India against Eric Webber of England. Pretty strong quarter-final lineup. Whoever makes it through, so expecting 4 hard-fought matches. For those of you wanting to follow this tournament to a conclusion, the semi-finals will be 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, and the final will be first thing 9 AM on Friday morning. The under-23 singles started out on Monday, so it will be a full week of play by the time they get to that final, whoever gets there. Martin Dunne's path to the quarter-final was to beat Callum Saunders of Australia in the last 32. Took that match by 6 frames to 4. And yesterday he beat Adam Glover of England 6 frames to 3. So reasonably comfortable so far, although got pushed fairly hard in both of those matches. Maher, meanwhile, beat Ryan Pisani of Malta 6-3 in the last 32, before then going on to record a good 6-1 win yesterday over fellow Irishman Barry Sinnott. 6 frames to 1, so didn't waste too much time playing that one. That was at 9 o'clock last night, so straight back into action today. Lots of pool, of course, being played this week. These guys not only involved in the singles competition, but also in the team competitions. So a few balls have been potted, but not a lot has changed in terms of the overall equation for this frame, which is that somebody is going to have to do something about the top right corner pocket, or the bottom right as we look at it from this overhead angle. So, different perspective on it, but the problem much the same for Martin Dunne. However, whichever angle you want to look at it from, he's still got a problem in that there's a red right in front of his balls. Well, That's not half turned out well. He's managed to jam a yellow over the other corner pocket and knock one of the yellows out. You could well have imagined that in driving the white into that corner he could have fouled the red in, but somehow avoided that. And because he's now covered the top left, I think he can actually play a deliberate foul here, potentially. No, he decides not to. Thought he might consider that because he had the other corner pocket tied up, he had enough latitude to play the foul, although it was going to be a bit risky giving his opponent a 2 visit, so opts to try and force the ball out instead. Adam will be a bit less happy with this situation than when he was last at the table. When he was last at the table, he had absolute control. Now he's got this slight problem that he's got a ball stuck top left. Forced therefore to involve himself in a bit of cat and mouse in order to engineer a situation to get it out. This room's still very much in the balance. They've each got one of the top corner pockets covered. So turned down a deliberate foul on his last visit to the table, but deciding that there's no other option here. It's a pretty bad outcome. Anything but the white going in there is probably okay. He was trying to knock the black up, wanted to get the black into the mix up the top of the table. But the problem is with giving somebody cue ball in hand is that from this kind of position that they can pick out the very angle they need. This red you can see doubles across, so Adam's going to double it across and plant it into the one that's over the pocket. And now, suddenly, in the space of that one shot, that one careless in-off has unlocked this frame. Can't really imagine any problems here for Adam. He just needs to pot the red top right, get the cue ball down into the middle of the table in play somewhere, just screw behind that yellow. Well, I tell you, if he's snookered himself behind that, that's a terrible shot. He may still be able to see the one. No, I'm not sure he can. That seemed a completely unnecessary shot to me. I thought he could have gone behind the yellow, or if he thought he had enough room in front of it, fine, but anything other than getting stuck to it. Looks like it could be the tale of a couple of fouls turning this frame around. He's got this white so well glued to the yellow, it's not even that easy to hit a red, I don't think. So potentially space behind the black to go slowly off that cushion. Looking at the twice across the table option at the moment. Looks like he's going to have to play this with a fair amount of pace as well. Well, good shot. He, in fairness, did what he needed to. So, still got the 2 visits in hand, of course. He's turned this from being what was essentially an unmissable clearance into one that he's now really going to have to work for. If he does manage to clear up from here, he's going to have done well. And if that keeps going, that's a good shot. He could have done with it going a bit further, but I think he's just about okay. It's actually pretty difficult to generate as much topspin as that. You saw the work that he got on the ball. It's the cue ball's smaller than the object balls. Getting it to travel forwards over that kind of distance, it can very often check up off the cushions. As well to inject that much pace. Still got some problems though, because even if he can clip this one into the middle pocket, which I think he can just about, the white is inevitably going to be cannoning into the black, which is why he's decided to play it as a double instead. You can clearly see in retrospect that was much the better option. So making sure he's taking his time over this. Doesn't want to make any mistakes given what's happened in this frame. Black dispatched with no problem at all. And Maher now leads Martin Dunne by 2 frames to 0. If you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of the under-23 singles quarter-final between Martin Dunne of Ireland and his countryman Adam Maher. Commentary for this one from Mark Shepherd. Also running a parallel stream to this with one of the other quarter-finals, Zach Cooper of England against Cormac Kerr of Ireland. To keep up with all of these, just search for the English Pool Association's page on YouTube or go to the World 8-Ball Pool Federation's website, wepf.org. We'll be providing live streaming for the remainder of this tournament, which concludes with the men's and ladies singles finals at 1 o'clock on Friday. A lot of pool to be played before that point though. This tournament, the under-23 singles, only at the quarter-final stages. Semi-finals will be tomorrow and the final first thing on Friday morning. So whoever gets that final will in fact have played every day this week. They'll have had a match Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and the final on Friday. They'll also have had plenty of team matches in between to keep warmed up. And speaking of team matches, you can see in the background another 8 tables further on in the room still in play. There's also another bigger room at the other side of the hotel with different tournaments going on at the moment. Also being treated to some unseasonably good weather in Blackpool at the moment, so for those not involved in the competition inside, very pleasant day to take a stroll out on the beach. The Imperial Hotel with a commanding view over Blackpool seafront. Seen a lot of history, this hotel. You walk into the bar, you can see portraits of the politicians that have stayed here over the years. Party conferences have now moved on to different venues, but still always the excitement of Blackpool in the summer, lots of holiday makers and lots of big events going on, which the World Championships is of course the pinnacle for those pool fans. Been making the trip up to Blackpool for well over 20 years now for this tournament, and been based at this hotel for a little over a decade now. In fact, these two players will have been born round about the time of the first World Championships, maybe even slightly afterwards. A lot's changed in that time, but what hasn't changed is the enthusiasm and dedication of all these teams that have travelled over. This is an all-Irish encounter, and we've seen a very strong Irish contingent in the juniors, men's and all the way through to the seniors. There's Also teams from all over the world. We were watching the South African team earlier, team from Australia of course. First to 7 this match, so still a long way to go for Martin Dunne. But pretty clean to stop the rot and get a frame on the board. Could potentially have won either of the first 2 frames. Adam Maher's looked the better of the 2 players so far, but that's kind of easy to say when he's the one that's won the frames. We've just seen more of him at the table. Reasonably slow start to the match, the parallel match on the other table. They've got 4 frames played already. They're tied at 2 apiece. This one, breaking the first frame, didn't really split the balls up, so that took a while to resolve. And we saw some tactical play in the last frame. This one appears to be heading much towards the same formula at the moment. Martin Dunne on red's not in a bad position here though. There's only the 1 red tied up at the top left hand corner of the table, so every chance he could make something happen fairly soon. So purposefully leaving himself an angle, wanted to make sure that he was low on this red. He's going to take the red to the right hand centre next. Gives himself an angle to get into the cluster up the top of the table if he wants to. Almost, but not quite. Had the right idea there, but if he was coming off the side cushion, he needed to really catch the red. Just plucking that yellow out of the way hasn't really achieved that much. So he pauses and looks on at the table. He's getting a little frustrated with the position he finds himself in. He's now slightly running out of options for how he deals with this red. He's got the ball, of course, over the bottom left-hand corner if he wanted to pot one, but that doesn't really avail any kind of position, so he's not about to do that. So, opting to play the sensible containing shot, I think he's probably fighting with himself for a moment. He didn't desperately want to get into tying the balls up again, but really no great choice. And a good shot there from Adam to get the pocket covered, suddenly in the space of a couple of shots. Gone from the reds being favourite to, probably you would say, yellows being favourite. Not surprising that Martin's taking a moment, because there's quite a lot to think about here. Bottom left is the more pressing issue. He's kind of happy with the way the balls are tied up top left. Don't think he's going to really be wanting to move those just yet. There is an argument for just playing the deliberate foul if it was just to plant the red onto the yellow bottom left. The yellows are in an okay position, but they're not absolutely unmissable. It just depends. Against a less good opponent, you'd be pretty happy to do that, but he's not by any means a less good opponent. He knows how dangerous Adam can be if he leaves him in with 2 visits. The other option is just to try to get this, well, either just play literally a containing shot where he just doesn't really move anything very far, or try and get this red out that's currently stuck bottom left. I might be leaning towards the deliberate foul here, not because it's by any means assured of winning you the frame, but it's at least you're giving yourself a chance. The trouble is, that's what he's done. I don't know if that's maybe what he was intending to do it like that. He seemed to spend a lot of time agitating over that and then played it in a slightly unusual way, but you can see he's got a good white ball, and maybe all that thought was just geared towards getting the good white. That was absolutely the choice of shot I was advocating though, so no surprise to see him play it like that. Although ultimately it's been to no avail. Paul Martin spent a lot of time thinking about where he wanted to leave the white ball, thinking that at least where he'd left it you could be sure that Adam wasn't pot anything the first visit, and then somehow out of nowhere he's plucked a great long double out, and now he's potted the ball through the pocket that looked like it was well covered. So having seemed like it was an obvious choice of shot, it's not necessarily going to pay dividends. You can't always be too results oriented with this though. Actually playing a deliberate foul was the percentage option, in that Adam wasn't going to clear up by any means 100% of the time from here. Whether or not it turns out that he does almost isn't the point. It was still probably the shot that gave Martin the best option of winning this frame. Adam pulled out a cracking double to set this up, and because he pulled out that cracking double, he's now got the luxury of one extra visit in hand, which he can use to bump this yellow over the middle pocket. So pretty good value for the win so far, Adam Maher. Hasn't really tried to do anything too flash, he's just gone about this in a sensible way. Looks composed, looks like he's going to play the right shot when put to the test. Martin Dunne hasn't really done a whole lot wrong so far, he's just found himself in a series of slightly awkward positions from which he's never quite managed to extract himself. So a frame that swung around could so easily have gone the other way, but Adam did well to turn things around in the middle. Makes no mistake as he clears it. Just shares a joke with his opponent, although in other circumstances his teammate and friend, I'm sure. Always strange when you get drawn against somebody from your own team or somebody that you play a lot. That's what happens when you're good players though. You reach the latter stages of a tournament, you're going to come up across other good players that you're well familiar with. From a neutral perspective, it would be nice of course to see Martin get some kind of foothold in this match. You kind of feel until he wins the first frame that he's not going to settle down fully into it. Don't feel like we've quite yet seen his full potential. Gone for a kind of controlled break there, which he achieved the control part, but no balls down, so Adam Maher, who we're seeing a fair bit of at the table at the moment, bounds back over to look at what he's been left. What has been left is an okay layout, but not a perfect one. Certainly be more than happy to be at the table in this position. A bit of work to be done, whichever colour he elects for. It's an open table, so he can hit any ball on the table apart from the black. The thing is though, whichever colour he goes for, he wants to make sure that he pots the first one, because that establishes his choice of colour. So for example, if he was already on yellows, he might have considered playing this yellow that he's looking at down the left hand side. Might well have considered playing that as his first shot in other circumstances, but that wasn't an option, because he needed to pot a yellow to make sure he took that colour. So now back over the left hand side and can get on with that shot that I mentioned. Depends how aggressive he wants to be. The safer option is just to play this yellow slowly over the corner pocket and block it off, but you wouldn't blame him for continuing with the clearance if he fancied it. Goes the sensible route. One thing we've also seen a lot of in this match and in previous matches is if you're going to cover a pocket, you've really got to get the ball over. It's not so much that the pockets are big, but it's surprisingly how easy it is to squeeze a ball round the corner if you don't completely get the pocket covered. So I have to say that the yellows have the edge in this frame, just virtually on the bottom left. Although Martin's got a ball kind of covering the bottom right, that's actually not quite so helpful because it's not really blocking his opponent from anything. It's really the priority at the moment for Adam. He can't clear up from this position, so he just wants to promote some of his yellows into better positions. Just a balance between getting your balls out and not giving your opponent too many chances. Important moments these for both players. Once you get to the quarterfinals, you suddenly start thinking for the first time that actually you're not that far away from getting to the final and maybe winning the tournament. Sometimes in the early rounds that all seems a bit distant and you're just thinking about the match in front of you. Now, this will be the first streamed matches for these guys in the singles, and they're suddenly starting to think to themselves this could be a way of life. Get through to the semis, get through to the final, start playing in this part of the arena a bit more often. Just to bring you an update from the other table where Zach Cooper is taking on Cormac Kerr. They're getting through the pace, the frames at a slightly more lively pace. 3 apiece in that match. So, challenge thrown down to Adam as to whether he can clear up from this position. The fact that he's ended up touching or close to touching this yellow certainly isn't going to help that cause. So after much deliberation from both players, it looks like they've concluded that these balls aren't touching. But the fact that it took them both so long to come to that conclusion suggests that it's pretty close. When the balls are that close together, it's very difficult to change the angle of them. So he ended up about 2 balls widths away from where he wanted. He was trying to get the yellow the other side of that red. It turned out pretty bad in the end. He ended up just bumping the red towards the pocket. If he'd been even half an inch or an inch away from the object ball when he was playing that shot would have been so much easier and he would never have missed it by as much as he did. The fact that they were so close together, it's just very hard to change the angle of the ball. He's actually managed to convert a position that a moment ago was fairly promising into one that's really quite tricky for the yellows now. It's always the frustration of pool though. You can be in a good position and then make one slightly careless error and things change. Decided to take his medicine, play the deliberate foul. Knows that there's an element of risk that his opponent might clear up. Not that straightforward, so prepared to take on that risk. Very hard in pool to ever achieve much certainty. Sometimes people play a deliberate foul and their opponent clears up and you think, well, what were they doing playing that? But it's all a percentages game. You just have to give yourself the best chance of winning. Close, but no cigar there. That looked as it was trundling towards the pocket like it might well drop. Ultimately came back off the far jaw. And that's a big difference. If Martin still had the 2 visits remaining, the position would be considerably more straightforward. As it is, he's now only got 1 shot and got the problem still of the ball tied up on the right hand side of the table. So I think Adam will be breathing a little bit easier now. He'll firmly be expecting to be coming back to the table soon. So he played the more difficult shot there with the aim of getting a better quality snooker, which he may have done. He'd have done pretty well if he's snookered Adam on all of the yellows. I'm not sure if he can get through that gap above the black to see the one on the right hand side. Presumably not, from the fact that he looks to be considering coming off the baulk cushion. Oh no, he can in fact see the one. No, in fact he can see all of it. Actually just considering his options for later on. I thought originally he could see through, but then appeared to be lining up something off the cushion. So that's gone okay, but not perfectly. If he could have got a clear shot at one of these yellows, that would have been easier, of course. Can't now see the one over the corner, and it's quite badly hampered, I think, for the one at the other end of the table. Yeah, this is a really awkward stance to be trying to get into. Well, good shot. Couldn't just take that pot on normally, so played the double up and down, trying to get in or over the bottom left-hand corner. Don't know that he can see this yellow though. If he could, this would have been the absolutely dream result, because you can see that the pocket for the black is now opened up. Well, how tight is that? Could he just get through for the faintest edge of that yellow? Tricky if not. Generally these shots are easier. If you bend them with a bit of side, you could sort of swerve round. It'd be easier really to go to the left of the yellow as he red as he looks at it, but there's not a lot of space. Probably more space on the right hand side, but that's kind of the more awkward swerve, I think, to achieve. Doesn't have to go for the yellow, of course. Could play some kind of deliberate foul. But I think if he thinks there's any sniff of hitting it, he's going to be quite tempted, because the position onto the black is relatively natural. Now come round to look at the one cushion escape off the top cushion as we look at it. First glance, you wouldn't really say the angle's quite there. I think you'd have to play with a lot of side to straighten the ball up. Yeah, he's going to have to play this with some right hand side to get this straightened up. Seems like straightening it up too much. Well, it's a pretty disappointing outcome there from Adam's point of view. If he misses the yellow altogether, it's bad, but it's not too bad. Whereas once it's potted, not only are you giving your opponent two shots, but the table is just so open that it seems almost inconceivable to think of Martin missing from here. Famous last words, of course, from any commentator, but you've got to think with the two visits in hand, there can't really be too much pressure on this, beyond the pressure he's putting on himself because he's currently 3-0 down. Struggled thus far to get a toe hold in the match, but this looks like it's en route to becoming the frame that Martin needed. Got slightly the wrong angle to get naturally on the black, but that's not really an issue here because he's still got the two visits if he needs them. More than happy to leave a longer shot at this black. Should be absolutely fine putting as it is, but even if he draws it, that's not a problem either. Well, he has jawed it, but doesn't even bother standing up, straight down to knock it in. So, two Irish players, separated by 2 frames at the moment. Martin Dunne gets his first one on the board. Adam Maher now leads by 3 frames to 1. Stepping up to break in frame 5, Adam Maher. Be slightly disappointed to have lost that last frame, but still, you've got to look on the bright side. 3 frames to 1 lead against a decent player whose ability you're well familiar with is something he'd have been more than happy to take at the start of the match. Yellow ball down off the break, which will be something of a relief, I think, to Adam, because he'd be pretty keen to take yellows given the position top right. Yeah, that having been said, the one thing he won't be so pleased about is the position of the cue ball, because his options are fairly limited here. So that yellow should go through no problem off the cushion, and the red, if required, into what's currently the bottom right hand corner pocket. All looking pretty positive here for the yellows. Well, hasn't gone in, but it's covered the pocket, that's good enough. Never nice when you come to the table, if you're Martin Dunne in this position, there's almost not that much you can do. You almost feel a bit resigned to the situation. You're forced to sort of lock everything down and start playing a safety game, but you don't really fancy your chances at this point. Once your opponent's got 2 pockets covered like that, it's just so hard to get a foothold in the frame. Adam, meanwhile, is coming to the table with a lot of confidence because he knows he's got the position nicely tied up regardless of whatever else happens. So, slightly strange looking shot, but actually a logical enough one. Adam's thinking he's got this frame under pretty good control. Just wants to get the black near a pocket, doesn't want the black getting knocked up the top end of the table. So this player's just trading deliberate fouls at the moment. This is one of these games where you can very quickly lose track of who's doing what. Adam Maher, currently at the table, is on yellows. He now has 2 shots. So he uses the first of his shots to get the cue ball down this end and set himself up. He'll now take the yellow along the bottom cushion. No real advantage in potting that, more than happy to cover the pocket. This position's still not looking very inviting for Martin. Last time he was at the table he had 2 balls covering his. Now there's still 2 balls, they're a different one, but The equation is still the same. The top left-hand corner pocket is a problem, and even if you were to sort that out, the black would also be a problem. Still maintaining the same demeanour around the table, doesn't look too flustered about the situation. Got his first frame on the board in the last frame. Feeling a bit happier with life, although still trailing by 3 frames to 1, so needs to make something happen sooner rather than later. At least when you're the player behind, sometimes a long tactical frame like this, you don't mind too much, just helps you to compose yourself, get back into the match. Sometimes your opponent can get on a bit of a run, start winning a few frames in a row, at least you get rid of some of that momentum. At first glance that looks pretty good. Yes, another deliberate foul to contend with in this frame. So Adam once again coming to the table with 2 shots, but you may need more than 2 shots to get things sorted out from here. Could decide to clip the yellow to the bottom left-hand corner pocket and flick the black out at the same time, or decide to do what he has, which is to continue battling over the bottom right. He's now going to try to get this yellow behind the red. Well, he's almost covered that pocket. As we've seen repeatedly, there's sometimes more space than you think, although that red doesn't look entirely promising. That's a bit unfortunate. He didn't really want that red to go in. Judged that pretty well. But just that one extra roll just took it a bit too far. Both of those players have handled themselves pretty well in the tactical department so far. Martin giving this one plenty of thought. He knows that he's slightly running out of time now. He's only got 2 balls left on the table, and one of them is pretty close to a pocket. Unquestionably, Adam's got the upper hand in this frame, but you've still got to keep the pressure up. You can't afford to do anything casual, and that ball looks to me like it's rolled to the right, and I'm sure he must feel it has, because he's never played the shot like that. These tables in excellent condition and normally very flat indeed. It may just have been a case that he had a trace of side on or just went over a finger mark or something, but it did just appear to turn slightly to the right as it came down the table. So Martin looking for quite an ambitious shot here. He's going to play the red off the right hand side cushion and then into the yellow to try to knock the yellow out of the way and cover the pocket. Always quite tricky to judge that. Needed to catch the yellow a bit fuller. He's kind of done, if anything, he's done the opposite of what he was intending to. He wanted that kind of configuration, but with the red being the ball nearer the pocket, not the one further away. Well, let's have another look at the situation bottom right, and that's definitely a problem situation for him. Pretty well thought through shot. He's thinking that if he gets a red down the bottom of the table, that will help him, give him basically a bit more ammunition that can be slotted into play. Maher having none of it and responds with a deliberate foul of his own. Well, you'd have to say this is definitely one for the purists. It's pretty hard to follow who's on what colour, given that both of them constantly play deliberate fouls. So the focus gradually shifting from the bottom left as we look at it to the top right. The next shot will obviously have to be bottom left, but after that those balls are going to be out of the way. So it looks like we could be settling in for a while with this one. Don't think either player particularly wants to play like this, but this is sometimes the position that materialises. This is a pretty important match, this. Quarter-finals of the World Championship, so no one's going to be rushing into anything. Well, I don't think Martin will be able to believe that he's knocked the black all the way up there, hit that plant, and still hasn't come close to knocking the yellow in. This has worked out really well for Adam because he's now got two shots on yellows with the yellows opened up. I don't know whether he can see enough of this yellow directly over the pocket immediately, but even if he can't, he can come back to that in a moment. I was a little bit firm with that shot. I think I might have been inclined to play the same shot but a bit slower, for a little bit more certainty about leaving it over the pocket. As long as that yellow's there, Adam's certainly going to have the whip hand in this frame, but you can't afford to take liberties at the same time. Things can turn around. So it turns out that yellow would still pot. It looks like where the cue ball is, he's got a reasonably clear path through to the yellow that's over the pocket. The focus on this shot is just drawing the cue ball back cleanly. If you don't catch these dead straight, you end up clipping the jaw or clipping the red, and that completely ruins the position. He just doesn't want to touch anything, he just wants this ball drawn back in a straight line. Well, he didn't hit anything, but he didn't get it back in a straight line, and that's why he's now faced with this difficult black. We saw this situation earlier on in this match where Adam was very close to a ball and as a result wasn't able to pick out the right angle. He's got a little bit more space here. I think he can make this for the corner pocket. That's a good shot. He's hit that really nicely. Really important with those shots. Yes, you're queuing down on them, but that still doesn't mean you want to jab at them. He's got smoothly through the cue ball, dispatched the black into the back of the pocket. It was a frame that swung around a little bit. It looked like Adam was largely in control, but it could have gone astray at one stage. He'll be relieved to get the frame on the board, certainly. Adam Maher now leads Martin Dunne by 4 frames to 1. Well, funnily enough, he's trying to replicate the shot that he thinks rolled off, and I'm not sure it did roll in quite the same way the second time. So, Martin Dunne to break off in frame 6. A frame that he'd dearly love to get on his side of the scoreboard. Best of 13 frames this match, so his opponent more than halfway towards the magic number of 7. So, red ball potted off the break, but Martin opting for the yellows. Not making much of a job of it with that pot. At least he'd already potted one, so confirmed his choice of colour, but that's to little avail if you let your opponent back to the table. Picks out a good positional shot there. It was always going to be easy enough to land on a red, but that's really nicely in amongst them. Gives himself plenty of options from here. So on the balance of play so far, it's no surprise to see Adam ahead. Feels like Martin's yet to completely come out of his shell. He's played a few good shots, but struggled to get things sequenced together. Just got into a few slightly scrappy situations. This is a much cleaner situation at the table than we've seen for a while. We've had a few fairly tactical frames so far, but touch wood, it's slightly harder to see where that would come from. So you just slip too far here maybe to get the red top left. That's going to make life a bit more difficult if he is. He'll have to take the one down the left hand side cushion now. Yes, opting for the one. He's about to prove me wrong by covering another pocket. I think he was tempted by that one rather than the one on the other side, just because it afforded better position and was perhaps the only way that ultimately he was going to be able to fashion a clearance. But that was a difficult shot, and he didn't really play it in the most straightforward way either. He was injecting quite a lot of pace and trying to screw back. It's never that easy when they're right on the cushion like that. So I've moved from using the commentator's curse to cursing the players to now cursing myself. Well, having said it wasn't going to be a tactical frame, it looks like we may have worked ourselves into a slightly more tactical position. Couldn't do much there, could just see the very thin edge of the yellow, but that was all he cared about really. As long as that red stays where it is, Martin Dunne's going to be happy enough with life in this frame. Nothing much Adam can do apart from get involved in these kind of containing shots and just try and hope that he gets offered some kind of lifeline. Martin taking the opportunity to try and promote some balls. He's now got all of the yellows in possible positions. So that imposes a degree more urgency on matters. Adam felt like he was forced into going for a pretty tricky shot there. It was a difficult enough pot, but even if it had gone in, still had plenty to think about. That's been the tale of this match for Martin. It's just been a couple of millimetres out with things. If he pots that ball cleanly, then he's in prime position amongst these yellows, but just didn't quite catch it right. Jawed the ball. White took a slightly different path. Very often the case in junior and under 23 matches that they turn into pretty aggressive matches with a lot of clearing up going on. This one really from the start has turned out differently from that. It's been pretty cagey stuff for the most part. This frame looked like it had the potential to be done and dusted pretty quickly, but Adam slipped out of position and ended up covering the pocket kind of whilst missing a ball. Played a sort of two-way shot that ended up covering a pocket. That's what's ground us back into this safety battle. So what does Martin want to do? Does he want to pass a few balls? Approach this from a more aggressive perspective? Does he want to try and perfect the situation bottom right before he does too much more? Opts for the cover, which you can hardly blame him for. He's currently got a stranglehold on the frame. Doesn't want to do anything that lets his opponent back into it. Update from the other table. Zach Cooper and Cormac Kerr still little to choose between them, tied at 4 apiece. Let's see this session of play coming to an end on the outside tables. Balls being set up ready for matches that'll be starting at 4 o'clock. Always a beautiful sight when you see down the line. You can see all the pool tables perfectly lined up there, all the balls set up and ready to go. The tables have just been ironed. Experimented with various different colour cloths. It's become quite trendy over the last year or two to have your cloths in a different colour, but I think for a lot of people the purity of the green is hard to beat. Always something slightly mesmerising about the darkness of pool venues and then the bright lights over the tables. brightly coloured balls set against the beautiful green of the bays. That's what drew a lot of us in to start with, and still has a magic when you see it. Very different surroundings, of course, for these players from where they'll have started out. Most of us started playing in fairly dark snooker and pool clubs. Over the last 20-25 years, the UK Tour and these tournaments have been held in a range of high quality hotels around the country. Guaranteed the finest equipment for the finest players at these tournaments. Whereas at club tables sometimes you're wondering if the cloth's going to be worn out or the ball's going to roll off. None of that, of course, here at the World Championships. The table's brand new or close to brand new, always in immaculate condition. Staff here, led by Stan Grant on the technical side, worked very hard to get everything set up perfectly. They've done a fantastic job as always. And indeed a shout out to the whole top table team who've worked so hard throughout the course of this tournament. When you just see the match being played, you don't realise how many people it takes to get to this point. All the people that are setting up the tables, setting up the venue, arranging the matches. And of course to our producer Yvonne, who's worked tirelessly with the streaming this week. New format this year, streaming these two tables live, giving you the choice of the two streams. If you go to our website, World 8 Ball Pool Federation, wepf.org, you can select either stream. Currently doing in parallel these two quarter-finals, Zach Cooper and Cormac Kerr on the other table, Martin Dunne and Adam Maher on this table. And unquestionably this has been the more tactical of the two matches, of the two that we're covering at the moment. The other one's 8 frames in, only 5 frames played so far in this one. The pace of play has been relatively pedestrian, largely due to the tactical situations the players keep finding themselves in. Just take this opportunity whilst players ground to something of a halt to run through our schedule for the rest of the afternoon. Up next, under 23 team session, we've got Wales against England B and Northern Ireland against Ireland A. And then later on, currently scheduled for around 6:30, although the pace of play here is such that that may be a little bit later than that. We'll have our first look of today at the men's team competition. Wales v France. That'll be spread across both tables, so we'll be doing some split screen coverage like we did for the team match between South Africa and Ireland that we showed first thing this morning. And then currently scheduled around 10 o'clock tonight, planning to bring another under 23 team session, Ireland A against India and Northern Ireland against England B. Subject to change, of course, depending on how matches go elsewhere. It's been fairly hard to pick a winner of this frame right from the start. There's been moments where it looked like Martin Dunne had the measure of it. Now things appear to be slightly back in favour of Adam Maher, but still kind of anyone's game. So that shot not quite turning out right. I think he was trying to screw the cue ball back into the cluster of the black and red. Kind of got a bit wrong on both fronts because he hasn't quite sorted out the balls on the right hand side of the table, and he's also knocked the other one into a slightly safer position. Just a small shake of the head, which is about as much emotion as we've seen so far in this match. Both players showing a good level of composure, both around the table and in their shot selection. Options a little bit limited here. I think he maybe, is he considering the deliberate foul, or is he just seeing whether he thinks the black goes if he can pop the yellow? It's not without problems, this deliberate foul, because Adam's only got one ball left on the table, so unless he's going to find some way of potting the red and getting the black safe, it might... don't know if that's an option. Can he pot this red that's over the pocket and sort of bump into the black? Kind of tricky from where he is. So he considers quite a few options, but ultimately just goes for a pretty vanilla containing shot. Maybe worth the risk for Adam just taking this putt on top right. If it goes in, he's going to win the frame. Assuming, of course, the black doesn't go. If the black passes the red, there's a lot more pressure on this. If it doesn't, it's pretty much a free shot. Holds himself steady. Good piece of cueing, that. So it's been a scrappy frame, but as long as Adam can just negotiate the positional side of this, just needs to get the cue ball out. He can either screw back across the face of the black. Black's obviously going in the same pocket as the red. You can either do that or clip it thin and come off the right hand side cushion. Opt to screw across the face of it. Slightly overdone it in that the white's kind of a bit closer to the side cushion than it needed to, but you still can't really imagine any problem with this black. Was a bit more pressure though when your opponent's got a ball over the opposite corner pocket. If he doesn't pot the black, the frame's gone, so needs to hold himself together. No problem at all though. What would be a simple black in other circumstances, he makes look simple, even though it's the quarter-finals of the World Championships. That's the skill, of course, playing the same even under situations of high pressure. 6 frames have been played so far, and it's Adam Maher who's won 5 of them. He leads Martin Dunne by 5 frames to 1. And it's the man with the 5-1 advantage that's got first chance in this frame to extend that advantage as he steps up to break in frame 7. Well, balls travelling all over the table, but none of them has found a pocket. This is a pretty appealing position, you would feel, for Martin Dunne. Done his best to immediately play himself out of position. I think he may still be able to get through okay to this one to the middle. Yep, no problem with that, so back in prime position again. Not too much that can go wrong with the yellows in open play. There's this one on the left hand side which is obviously not going to be quite so straightforward. It's in a pretty good place for a double, assuming that it goes past the red. Opts to play it up the line instead, which is simpler from a positional perspective. He just needs to keep his head still, roll this yellow down the length of the table, and then he'll naturally be on the other yellow. This is no gimme though, this pot. Oh, good shot. Plays it with a lot of confidence. Sticks it firmly into the back of the pocket. So maybe 5-1 behind, but still cueing the ball well is Martin. Just needs to find a way down to get perfectly on the black. Because the yellow's on the left hand side of the pocket as you look at it, it's not quite as simple to get position. If it was on the other side it would be very simple to screw down, but I just try to borrow a bit of angle off the cushion there, and that does not look like what he was intending to do at all. It's extremely careless if he's tight behind this red. Looks like a total snooker from there, which really fairly inexcusable. Although I think it was a slightly more difficult positional shot than it looked actually. The fact that the yellow was kind of well into the pocket but pressed across one side of it did reduce the options somewhat. Whatever option he was going for though, it definitely wasn't this one. Horrible position, and this is the kind of thing that when you're 5-1 behind, it seems to happen all the time. If you're 5-1 ahead, somehow you end up running past that red and you're plumb on the black, but Martin just perhaps needs a little bit of luck to go his way just to get himself settled and back into this match. Well, good effort, but anything short of potting it was always going to be a problem, because just look at the position of these reds. Obviously they've still got to be potted, but verging on a practice position for most players. Could be a big frame in the context of the match. Big difference between 5-2 and 6-1. Once your opponent gets within one of victory, it's very hard to apply enough pressure to them. They just have too many chances generally to get things finished off. If Martin Dunne can keep Adam Maher a couple of frames away from victory, at least gives himself a bit more of a chance. So, good pot that, but slipped out of position now, and I think he's going to be forced to play a safety shot. It's just such a simple snooker behind this red that I'm not sure he's going to be able to talk himself into anything more adventurous when, frankly, there's no real need for it. If you had any kind of easy pot, you'd fancy him to carry on with this clearance, but really from this position it's a guaranteed snooker versus quite a tricky long shot. Well, I don't know if everyone would have played it like that. Playing a double kiss off that red is somewhat fraught with danger. You've only got to catch it slightly wrong and it springs off on the other side, which would have been disastrous. But snooker safely obtained. Well, Adam will never get a better chance to get within one frame of victory than this one. These balls are absolutely perfect now. The two that were slightly more difficult before have been broken up. Really just the simple stuff to do from here. Ideally, he just wants to bring the cue ball up to the end of the table he's playing from, just give himself a few more options. That's pretty good. You can see along that line he took, if it stops shorter than that, he's got the one to the corner. If it runs on, he's got the one to the middle. Can either choose just to run this one in and have a little bit more angle on the red, or may choose to screw back across the table. Seemed a great purpose to that. Got to about the same position he'd have been in if he had just rolled the ball in dead weight. So can't take liberties with this shot. It's a very makeable shot, but it's one that is easy to push wide if you're not careful. Also can't really afford to play it too hard. The shot's probably made more difficult by needing to play it almost dead weight in order to hold some kind of position for the black. In fact, had a little bit more angle than it seemed, or rather a little bit less angle than it seemed, so was able to hold with no problem at all. So, slightly testy black. If he gets his hand on the table, this is easy, but queuing off the cushion, quarterfinals of the World Championships, if you're ever going to miss it, that would be when. Be no excuse for missing though, because this is a lot easier than most of the balls he's potted in this frame. Wow, just look at that. I hesitated to say that there was a chance of missing it because it seemed like it was such an easy shot, but just had that feeling with the ball on the side cushion like that, anything could happen. And anything did happen. And what happened in that case was that Martin Dunne won his second frame of this match. Adam Maher now leads by 5 frames to 2. So these two getting the most out of their encounter on the stream table here. It's been a slow match. It's had some moments of quality and it's had some moments of slightly painful tactical exchanges that have taken a long time to resolve. That last frame quicker, but just got away from Adam Maher at the last moment. As is so often the case in pool, did all the hard work and then undid it all by missing the black. And his opponent, meanwhile, he's been standing there thinking he's not coming back to the table, suddenly gifted the frame. And with the frame, a lifeline back into the match, because there's a big difference between 6-2 and 5-1. Between 5-2 and 6-1. 5-2 still not ideal if you're the one with 2, but it's an awful lot better than being 6-1 behind, and that was what looked like it was about to happen before Adam missed that black. I think that ball was going in before the second red hit it. Tricky cut across the table, but for the double kiss. Still somewhat in the balance, whether this frame is going to go the way of a quick clearance or whether it's going to descend into more tactical skirmishes. I was about to forecast the former, but I've learnt my lesson from the commentator's curse when I last said that, so let's see what happens. Both players would probably be happy to have some slightly more open frames. It does take it out of you a bit if you're going to constantly be playing half-hour tactical battles. If you can just win a quick frame in 1 or 2 visits, like potentially there's the opportunity to do here, it doesn't half help your confidence. The thing that's currently blocking a clearance from yellows is the position of the black. Could elect to move it. I mean, in fact, he could elect to move it off this shot, but it would be dangerous to do that because he'd have to come off the baulk cushion, then he'd be travelling this way down the table at the point he hit the black, so no certainty of being in the right position. Well, slightly surprising miss, it has to be said. So, same issue for Martin Dunne. Yellow is okay, black not okay. Well, that's not bad. He's got the black out. The only problem is he's now blocked the path of that yellow, so he's going to have to play down for a double. Just wants the white coming just past the centre line of the table, effectively. By just past the centre line of the table, I do not mean just past the centre line and behind that red, because he's not going to be potting the ball from this position. Talked a few times in this match about percentages, and that was a case of weighing up whether it was better to have an easier double that you were straighter on, or whether it was best to just leave a bit more angle. He kind of feels he didn't really need to be flirting with danger down that side of the table at all. So, the difficulties for Martin Dunne continue. Not for the first time in this match. 2 visits gifted away. Right now, the big difference is that Adam's just getting so many more chances. Not sure how much of it's even Martin's fault, but he's ended up in a series of positions that have been quite difficult, and he hasn't always had quite the answers at the end. Doesn't really matter which order he takes the ball. I think perhaps he would have preferred to take the one in the middle first, but able to take it long instead. Still got the 2 visits, of course, so they still no real excuse for missing a ball like that by as far as that. Just needs to steady himself here, because honestly and truly there's no excuse for not clearing out from this position. There's always stuff in life that can go wrong, but you need to take this kind of chance when you get it. Now, how close to the black does he want to get? The red's obviously an almost unmissable pot, and some kind of position is fairly straightforward. If you come too far over the right hand side of the table, or you risk coming too close to the black, both occasions you could potentially snooker yourself. And that's a good example of a sensible percentage shot. He's got the cue ball down the middle of the table, hasn't brought that yellow into play. For the most part, this has been a good steady performance by Adam Maher. Chalks another one up. He now leads Martin Dunne by 6 frames to 2. So we watch Adam rack up the balls. His opponent's in that awkward position where he knows full well that one mistake and this could easily be the end of the match. I wouldn't say he's hit top gear yet, but Adam Maher has been good value from the win on based on what we've seen so far. Well, hitting at a decent pace, but to no avail. No balls pot in. It's an open table for Martin Dunne as he comes back. For those of you just joining us, you're watching live coverage of the under-23 singles match at the World Championships between Martin Dunne and Adam Maher. Two young Irish players, both exceptional talents and both with points to prove in this match. So far it's Adam Maher that's been scoring more of the points. He leads Martin by 6 frames to 2. Every chance, of course, that this could be the final frame of this match, and that adds additional pressure to the situation. Most of the skill in the pool is not how well you play in practice, but it's how well you're able to play under pressure. These two obviously have no problem with that. That's how they've got to this quarter-final. Still a few signs of nerves on both sides. There's been moments where they've both made the game look pretty easy, but there's also been some moments where they've both made it look pretty difficult. Good shot that from Martin Dunne. His only problem is that he's pretty comprehensively hampered by this red. This ball is going to be very difficult to reach. For a right-hander, this is in a very awkward position. Is he tall enough that he can get to this position? Has he can keep a foot on the floor? There are very few places on an English pool table where it's hard to reach and where you start thinking about having to use a spider maybe, but this is an awkward spot. Just a fundamentally tricky position to get into, and then you've got to queue over a lot of balls as well. Not too much to do with the cue ball. The priority is just to drop this yellow in. Going to have a longish shot at the black, but it's better to have a shot at the black. I think his problem is that he just can't quite reach over. He really wants to put his hand past the black and past the red that's near the black, but I don't think he can quite get over that far. So, made the somewhat reluctant decision to get the spider out. No one ever really loves using the spider, but here, pretty unavoidable. So, just cue this smoothly, drop the yellow in. It's hard even to tell where the tip of your cue is. You're sometimes worried when you're playing a shot like this that you're getting too close to the cue ball. Can't take as big a backswing as usual. Well, in a sense he'll settle for that. I mean, it was an easy enough pot. It's a bit surprising to have missed it, but all the difficulty came from the use of the spider there. As you see, the shot on the black was perfectly makeable, but not an absolute formality, so I guess he'll probably live with the idea of waiting a bit. He's not going to like his next shot to the table though. And this is the problem. Once you miss the last ball, you just get into these situations where it's so easy for your opponent to lay a snooker. That time electing not to try to get out of it.
Men's section on table 13-14, Australia versus Scotland.
It's a game of pretty small margins. If that cue ball had rolled a bit further forward, a couple of shots back, and Martin hadn't been cueing over the red and the black, he couldn't have missed that yellow. As it is, he has, and he's now caught in this awkward game. Hard to know which colour you'd rather be here. The sort of amateur analysis of this position is that obviously you'd rather be the yellow because you've got one ball hanging over a pocket, but actually there's no guarantee that he's going to be seeing this yellow again anytime soon. Well, that was not the best start to that visit to the table, was it? He missed the starter ball, has to play another snooker. It's so tantalising for Martin. He's so close to having this frame won, but just needs to get some kind of look at this yellow. See any kind of touch on it and it goes in, but right now he's just not being afforded any path towards it. Doing the right thing and biding his time though. No point getting upset. Well, his opponent's kind of in the driving seat at the moment. That's to say that Adam's kind of in the driving seat and that he's the one that keeps laying the snookers. His problem in this frame is slightly different. He's got a lot of balls still to pot and increasingly they're getting tied up. Once again, no starting pot, so forced to go something a bit different. And where's the white? Well, that's surely going to be the end of this frame now. This could very well be the lifeline that Martin Dunne's been waiting all match for. A few things have gone the wrong way, but that's a real let-off from this position. Yellow disappears, just this straightish black across the centre of the table. Hasn't always been pretty, but he's got the job done there. Martin Dunne pegs one back. He now trails Adam Maher by 3 frames to 6. So, will that frame be what is required to spur Martin Dunne on to greater things? Well, if it is, it's not going to be just yet, because that cue ball is shot into the middle pocket like a rocket, and Adam Maher's going to have first look at these balls. Our graphic just slightly behind, but just to confirm that Adam Maher is currently leading this match by 6 frames to 3. Just looking for one good chance at this stage. He only needs 1 frame for victory. Best of 13 match this, so first to 7 wins it. Just looking around the other quarterfinals, Jack Smithers prevailed by 7 frames to 1 over Joe Nolte. So he's through to tomorrow's semi at 11 AM. We'll play the winner of this match. Given de Gill prevailed by 7 frames to 5 over Eric Webber. We're still waiting for the latest score. Zach Cooper and Cormac Kerr. I think the match has finished, so this is the last remaining quarter-final going on. So Seems to be a match that's just destined not to be that free-flowing in the end. Every time it looks like the table may have opened up and one player may be about to sequence some frames together and pot a few balls, we seem to get drawn back into some kind of tactical exchange. And suddenly that shot has really opened the frame up. This looks for a moment like it was going to get caught up into being another tactical battle, but Maher slides that yellow into the middle pocket and suddenly they're all there for the taking, and this is exactly the kind of opportunity he's looking for to get this match won. Seen his lead pegged back by one, but still holds a comfortable advantage. Takes the pressure off a bit when you know you've got a few frames in hand should anything go astray, but really you can't imagine that anything should go astray from this position. Few options here. You can take these in various different ways. It just needs to think about what's the best way of getting back for the black. I think his plan was probably to play the two on the left hand side of the table first, but he hasn't quite got the right angle to do that, so that's pretty much perfect. He's just got enough angle to run through this one into the left centre. Just wants to get somewhere above the centre of the table effectively, and then he can just drop that last yellow into the middle pocket, which will offer natural position back down to the black. Hasn't always been easy, this match. Maher has looked consistently the better player, but Martin Dunne's played his part, and they've both got slightly bogged down in tactical frames at times. Looks like you can very much see the winning line here, though. Still not rushing into this, but surely there can't be any more twists in this tale. Just got to drop this ball into the middle pocket. And black just hanging there waiting to be potted. He's probably got a bit more in the tank than we've seen today. He's done what he needed to today, has Adam. And if he can just pot this black, he'll be through to tomorrow's semi-final. And pot the black he does. The players come to shake hands. The match got bogged down in safety at times, but there were some good moments as well, and there were some good moments of safety from both of them, which is why the battles went on for a long time. It was a longer match than we might have expected between those two, but that'll be no problem at all for Adam Maher. Gets the job done, beats Martin Dunne by 7 frames to 3. That wraps up our coverage of these singles matches. We'll be back shortly on this stream with the men's team from the under-23 event.